Hello and welcome to Recruiter 360 TV with me, Toby Babb, and joined today by Alex Moyle. Alex, how are you?
How are you doing, Toby? Well, nice to meet you again.
Likewise, likewise. So Alex is one of the great recruitment trainers. He's come through the industry and now he's the founder of Nurtureit. Tell us a little bit more about your background.
So I started in recruitment back in 1998. I started as a resourcer.
Vintage.
Good vintage, yeah. I started as a resourcer, placing accountants in Bristol. And then I evolved to being a recruiter, as you do after your 6 months. And I placed accountants £6 to £12 an hour on a temp basis in Swindon, Cheltenham and Gloucester.
I think that's the market everyone was after.
It was the sweet spot. It was the sweet spot. I spent a lot of time picking up jobs for the Bristol team, I'll tell you. But that's sort of where my pedigree, and then I sort of moved within Robert Half over a 16-year career through being a manager, director, and ended up sort of running the training team, an internal consulting team that sort of travelled around, turning around branches and doing troubleshooting. So, and today I sort of do recruitment training, and more recently I've started Nurtureit, which is a pipeline productivity tool, trying to replace those lead spreadsheets and pipeline spreadsheets that all those recruiters seem to have.
And that's just starting up now, right?
Yeah, so we were building it last year, and we're just going to market at the moment. So I'm sort of moved from sort of recruiter to trainer to tech startup entrepreneur, which means it's an exciting time.
The tech entrepreneur will be wearing all sorts of plunge neck t-shirts and skinny jeans in no time, won't you? The beard hasn't come through yet.
The beard hasn't come through. Skinny jeans make me look like I've got chicken drumsticks more than I do already. So
fair enough. So look, the training thing's really interesting, and I've seen you talk a few times. It's always excellent. And one of the things you've sort of focused in on is boringly brilliant, right? As the sort of strapline for some of the things you've been talking about. And it resonates with me every single time because I am a firm believer in brilliant basics being the absolute key to this job. Tell us a little bit more about your concepts and thoughts behind that.
So boringly brilliant is really about how can you be really successful at the job and make it look easy.
Yeah.
And in my experience, you've got those recruiters that are just talents.
Yeah.
You know, they've got the ability to build rapport, they can get clients to like them, they can get candidates to like them and to make it work. And I sort of call those the show horses.
Yeah.
But actually over the years I found it's those that just do the little things every day. They do the things that average recruiters don't do, and they just work out a way to do those things all the time. And they become successful, not because of talent and ability, but because they're just really good at working the process and making that process brilliant.
Yeah.
And so I call them the plough horses.
Yeah.
You know, and so the choice I always give people is, do you want to be a show horse or a plough horse?
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing about the show horse is it doesn't tend to last for very long in our industry, does it?
Yeah. Well, the show horses have loads of strengths, but they tend to get bored quickly, and often the thing that they lack is that ability to really do the little stuff every day. What they're looking for is the shortcut, and shortcuts are great, but eventually you cut too many shortcuts and you get a dip.
Yeah.
Where actually it's about doing the basics. Now the ideal is you get someone with loads of talent and loads of ability to do the things that you want to do every day, and then you get superstar performance. Yeah. But yeah, so you want consistent performance year in, year out. I'd take a plough horse that just grinds it out every day.
The interesting thing about the plough horse is it doesn't look particularly cool, does it? It doesn't look exciting, and people look at them quite often and call them the lucky recruiter. They'll be the ones who never seem to have the drama. They'll be the ones who always seem to do that sort of, you know, in perm terms, £25,000 to £35,000 performance, and all of a sudden they've done £350,000 across the course of the year just by doing those basic things well. And one of the key words I think behind high performance in recruitment is that word systematic. You know, that systematic, process-driven work. Tell us a little bit about how people watching can bring that sort of quality to their work.
Well, a lot of it is just breaking down the job to sort of three simple parts. You've got your ability to generate and manage leads, and that's job order leads, but also candidate leads. And then you've got your ability to manage the vacancies that you've got. And a really important part of that is investing time and opportunities where you're going to get paid. We'll probably talk a bit more about that in a minute.
Yeah, one of my favourite bits.
And the last bit is making sure the placements you've got stick. Now, I came from a temp background, and one of the things I was made to do when I first started was every week I had to print off a list of all my working temps. And at the end of the week, my manager would check. I'd highlighted the manager's name and I'd highlighted the candidate's name to basically say they'd been spoken to that week and they were going to all turn up for another week. And the key was to make sure that every start you made, you maximised that revenue. And the same was when you started doing perm recruitment. It's not about getting someone to start the job, it's do they stay 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and are you there seen to sort of make it work rather than just take your money and run.
Yeah, that sort of aftercare is, I think, it's very much a temp mentality, isn't it? And perm recruiters quite often move away from that sort of stuff and don't think about the, it's almost like the mark after they've gone through and after they've gone through their rebate. But that sort of ability to keep people in that job and make sure it's the right thing for client and candidate can leads to a lot more stickiness, right? Yeah,
I mean, there's sort of perm and contract, and so if we looked at perm, the problem is with perm is at the moment a candidate's unhappy after 4 months, they sort of think, as long as they send me an email saying I approached you, then I can replace them. But actually, I mean, I was always a believer that if a client's paid a permanent fee, we've sort of got a duty of care to help make it work permanently. Yeah. And often you making time and effort to make it work, and that's liaising with the candidate, liaising with the client and working through some of those issues, makes the client and the candidate appreciate that you're there for the long term, not just the short term. Yeah. From a contract perspective, I think temp recruiters get keeping in touch with your candidates. I think contract recruiters struggle with it more because often they're placing people on 3-6 month assignments. Yeah. And so they think, well, what do I have to say? They're sort of happy. I mean, they'd call me. The problem it arises is the fact that candidates, every day time you get paid, they wonder, well, what did he do to get paid for this? Yeah. Every time the client looks at the invoice, they're thinking, well, what have they done to earn their money? They forget the fact that you placed a candidate. That's sort of part of the job. And so often in contract recruitment, keeping in touch through the contact cycle is about reminding the client, I'm just not here to get someone to start, I'm here to help make sure they finish the assignment as well. And a scenario I see lots of recruiters encounter is a client will give you a call and they go, Toby, I want to give Bob a pay rise, but I don't want to pay you anymore. And what the client at that point in time is telling you, which is, I love the candidate, but I don't think you're earning your money. Yeah. And so keeping in touch with those candidates is really, and clients, is really about saying, look, I'm still here, still earning my money. Look, when you see the invoice, I'm still here. Yeah. And that's just maybe every 3 months, just doing an on-site review, having lunch with the candidate, having lunch with the client, saying, how's it all working out? And you go to the client, is there anything I need to cover with Bob? Bob, is there anything I need to cover with Toby? Yeah. And you could do that on the phone. But what they're wanting to know is that you're keeping the value. You're keeping the value. You're there to help make it work. The phrase I always used to use, Mr. Client, my margin, this much is what covers the cost of the placement, this much covers the cost of running the temp, and this much here is my project management fee. Yeah. And I project manage that candidate through the assignment, which means good times and bad, I'm keeping in touch, and I'm managing unexpected surprises. Consultancy, where consultancies make their mark, isn't it? It's that ability to actually help people add value throughout the course of their projects, and that's they'll charge twice the amount that a recruitment consultant would for often exactly the same service. Yeah, and so an exercise I often get experienced recruiters to do that contract, I say, like, how often do you speak to your candidates? Yeah. And they go, I speak to them probably once every 2 months. And I go, right, okay, so how much money have you earned from that candidate on average in 2 months? And they'll go, well, it's £300 a week times 8, that's £2,600. And I go, blimey, I'd love a job where I got paid £2,600 for a phone call. Yeah, yeah. Because that's what they think they're paying. Yeah. You know, and actually it's just reminding yourself that you're there to earn that money the whole time. And that's just a little bit of making sure the placements that you make stick and people feel the value, not just at the beginning, but also through the assignment as well. Through the whole program, yeah. Let's return to the concept of leads. You spoke about that at the get-go. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about, I've heard you speak before about the whole concept of people looking very short-term as opposed to a long-term program. What's your views around that? Well, I think one of the reasons, so I often start at why are you working bad jobs? Yeah. And the reason people are working bad jobs is because they don't have enough good ones. Mm. And the reason they don't have enough good ones is because they don't do enough business development. Yeah. And business development isn't about cold calling. Yeah. It's just about keeping in touch with people that you think could be recruiting. Yeah. And so the best recruiters are really organised at the people that could recruit. Yeah. So they're CV stripping candidates every day. So a term that's in the industry is hot bossing. Yeah. So when they meet a candidate, and they go, oh, he works there, they take the name of that line manager and they put them on a list, not to sort of ring up and go, hey Toby, Bob's leaving, do you need someone? But just to sort of, just like an email campaign or sending a bit of thought leadership going, hi, it's me, you've got a red tie, if you ever get curry on that, I have red ties too. You know, it's just that front of mind awareness. It's marketing. It's not sales. It's just basically going, hi, it's me.
Yeah,
and so they're really diligent in CV stripping. They're really diligent in looking at companies that are going through change, especially when you work in a niche.
Yeah.
You know, you'll know there's certain systems. You'll know there's certain systems projects, certain systems upgrades. So for instance, if you're a compliance recruiter right now, GDPR is hot. Every compliance team is going to be impacted by GDPR because often league compliance, that sort of data protection sits within compliance. So that's what you're calling about. And you know who's got projects. And there's always going to be three types of client. The early adopters. And they might be proactive, but the likelihood is they'll have enough time to learn things for themselves. You've got the bulk of everybody. And those are the individuals that will probably bring in project resource to help you with some technical difficulties they might have or lack of expertise. And then you've got the last sort of quarter, which are basically the last minute Charlies. You know, it's just stopping the house burning down. And that's what's happening today in GDPR. And people are just ringing up going, I haven't done anything, help me. You know, and at the moment they're calling law firms, you know, and getting charged £2,000–3,000 a day. So GDPR recruiters or compliance recruiters are following that lead chain. And so it's just tracking where are the vacancies going to be,
what's happening in your
marketplace, and just being really diligent in keeping in touch. And part of that is about being marketing focused, not necessarily just sales focused.
Yeah, which is something that a lot of recruiters miss, right? It's like, oh, that marketing side of things doesn't keep me on my phone times, or it doesn't hit any of my KPIs. But it's the fundamental part to bring passive jobs, passive candidates, passive clients to your door because they know, like, and trust you, and you convert that way. Right?
And you've got the top end marketing is what you described there, but actually a lot of what recruiters do is marketing. So I love it when recruiters go, I hate sales. I hate sales, and I go, well, a lot of it depends on what you see as sales. So for me, I see marketing as front of mind awareness, hi, it's me, and sales, which is, do you want to buy now? And the problem is recruiters spend so much time doing buy now. I've got a job, are you interested? I've got a candidate, do you want to interview them? Do you want to, you've had a first interview, do you want a second interview? They then take that sales approach, which is what they do working jobs every day, which is getting commitment. And then when they go do business development, they're like, I've got a candidate, have you got a job? I've got a candidate, have you got a job? It's just like ringing up for PPI. We're actually, if you don't know anyone's got a job, you're marketing. And so selling a candidate, promoting a candidate is really just sort of saying, look, I have watches. I have watches. Like, if your watch breaks, I have watches. You've got a blue bezel. How important is a blue bezel to you? Well, I have blue bezels, but I also have blue faces. Which is more important to you, the bezel or the face? And that's the game of marketing. It's really about learning more about your customers. So at the moment of need, you can give them what they want. That's all LinkedIn, Google, Facebook do. Is every time you click, they learn a bit more about you, so they can give you what you want when you need it.
Absolutely.
And recruiters don't think like data businesses. They think like CV machines. And that's part of the evolution of managing leads is if you're managing your leads and you're thinking about what can you just do to show them that you've got something if they need it, you're going to get people give you a call.
There's a great story about one of the top salesmen in the States was a guy called, I can't forget his exact name, but he worked for Nordstrom, which is kind of like the Selfridges of America. And this guy built up a database of all of his client base, and he was the first $1 million salesman in Nordstrom history, and over the course of a year. And he used to just get that little bit of information from every time, and it became personal relationships. So he knew what sort of style of suit that person who came into the store would want. He knew what sort of things were going on in their life. He remembered to sort of send them a birthday card and when they came in, and he built this sort of roller disc effectively of information and was able to do it off that. And that's exactly what I think great recruitment's about. It's about speaking to your marketplace and getting to know their pain points and getting to know what sort of triggers they have to get good people and what great looks like for them and what would help them and where they've struggled for other relationships and other people in the past. And once you can start to build that up, it becomes an easy sell.
And also it's once you've got that knowledge, it doesn't matter whether they give you the job or not, because when you lead chase, you're able to call with exactly what they want. And so a game, my manager called it a game. For me, it felt like an inspection, which was every day she'd go, right, here's your target company for the day. And at the end of the day, I'm going to pick some job titles and you're going to tell me what they recruit for. So what you'd do is you'd call the same company and go, today I'm going to learn what they look for in a credit controller. Today I'm going to learn what they look for in a management accountant. And so when you were then lead chasing, you go, I know exactly what they look for in a management accountant. Because when you're lead chasing, like when you've got the vacancy, it's like shooting with a shotgun. You've just got to be sort of close, because it's a pretty big target.
Yeah.
But when you're lead chasing, it's like you've got to be a sniper.
Yeah.
It's a sniper rifle. You're a mile away from the job, and you've got to be able to hit the target. And so marketing is about learning what skill sets and what they look for in every skill set in their team. So when you know they're recruiting, you can send them a candidate that when they open it up, they go, I have to see that person.
Yeah.
And for me, that's why business development is the best bit about the job.
Yeah.
Because it's really just about learning about your customer and working out ways.
Well, it's great fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the part of it. It's the sport of the job, and a lot of people shy away from it. And as you absolutely rightly say, it means that people end up working bad jobs. And I love how you've talked, and please share with this whole concept of nurturing the job. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the challenge that a lot of recruiters have is that they just sort of worship the job order. Everything's about the job, and a recruiter will get a job, especially a perm recruiter's the best, and they'll get this job and they'll love it and they'll care for it and they'll caress it and they'll go, it's okay, if you come off, I'm going to hit my target this month. Yeah. It's okay, Toby, I'm going to hit my target, I've got a job. And your manager will come in and they'll go, what are you doing today? I'm shortlisting. Or they go, what are you doing tomorrow? I'm just arranging the interviews, just checking everything's okay. You know, and then when you're not doing anything, you're just sitting there waiting, going, I hope it's okay, I hope it's okay.
Yeah.
And what happens is that you don't do any BD because you're nurturing that job.
Yeah.
And more and more depends on it. And then one of your competitors sends a CV in from random, and the client gives you a call and goes, it came from nowhere, it just landed on my desk, I had to see them. I'm really sorry, I love how hard you've worked, Toby. And then it just dies, and recruiters just sit there and mourn. They go, I'm so unlucky.
Yeah.
I'm so unlucky. If you had come off, I would have had a good chance.
Yeah.
And boringly brilliant is really about knowing how much do I have to have on the go for statistically enough to come off.
Yeah.
So my number was always, if I wanted to bill 15 grand, I needed 60K at interview stage or beyond. Yeah. Because then just the numbers look after yourself. If you work at a higher level and slower pace, that might need to be 6 or 7 times. A lot of IT recruiters have to work 6 or 7 because they've never met their clients. Yeah. It's multi-agency, but you find a number. Yeah. And the goal is that the unluckiest recruiters the best recruiters I ever meet are the unluckiest, because they'll talk about the 350 grand they closed, but they'll also tell you about the 250 that didn't come off. Yeah. And they won't worry about that because they've billed 350.
Because they've done enough, yeah.
The unlucky recruiters, which are typically the ones that complain about being unlucky, they're not unlucky, they just didn't have enough on the go. Yeah. Yeah. You know, they don't let the numbers talk for themselves. And when I was at university, I used to sell educational books door to door, and I was told there were 6 goal periods in a day. If I knock on 90 doors, I'll show my books to 30 people. If I show my books to 30 people, I'll sit down with 15. If I sit down with 15, 5 will buy. Yeah, yeah. And I did it for 3 summers. My last summer, I sold $90,000 worth of books in 10 weeks. I was like one of the top salespeople. And the numbers pretty much were saying they were a little bit. I got a little bit better over time. Yeah. But it's just about let the numbers work for you. You just got to let the numbers work.
So here's an interesting thing, because when I interview, or whenever you see sort of anything too negative about a recruitment company, it will generally be about people saying, I left that company because it's a KPI business or whatever it is. However, every recruiter who does anything good has KPIs that will allow them to get to that sort of level. Now, I've got a theory about this. I've got a theory about why KPIs and data in the recruitment world is seen as a stick, and in the sports world it's seen as absolutely crucial fuel to how people can score more goals, get quicker, hit their Olympic standard or whatever it is. And to me, it is about recruitment individuals, recruitment consultants, and recruitment managers looking at the data and trying to look for the story, as opposed to this is how we've always done it. So it's not about a case of you need to make 100 calls, you need to make, speak to 10 managers a day, you need to get 10 interviews a week or whatever it might be. It's about what does the data that you're doing tell you about your performance, because everyone's different, right? And that's kind of where what you're alluding to there.
So Toby, it's great you talk about KPIs, and I think there's 3 things I always think about when it comes to KPIs. The first one is there used to be a band called Goldie Lookin' Chain, and they talked about rappers don't kill people. No, what was it?
Guns don't
kill people, rappers do. And I live by the phrase, which is KPIs don't kill recruiters, bad managers do. Yeah, yeah. And the KPI in itself isn't bad. Yeah. It's just how it's used. Yeah. And part of that is that big recruitment firms depend on KPIs to sort of say, if you do this, you will be successful. Yeah. And the problem is that as recruiters start being successful, they can't let that go. Yeah. And they keep managing people by the formula that they give a new person, even when they're doing 200 grand a year. Yeah, yeah. And then people hate them. Yeah. What really clever managers do is they go, these are your KPIs when you start.
Yeah.
And when you get better, we'll work out what your actual KPIs are.
Yeah.
And they adapt those KPIs. And the more, so I think the difference between an athlete and a recruiter is an athlete is involved in putting together the KPIs.
Exactly right, yeah.
They're involved in picking KPIs that they want to improve in.
Yeah.
And because they're involved in that dialogue, they feel like they've got ownership.
Yeah.
And because they've got ownership, they feel empowered to actually want to do it.
Well, look at it, and they'll search for things that are going to go through there, because people are looking for what actually moves them into the right direction, right?
Yeah, and I was tremendously lucky. Whilst I grew up in a recruitment battery farm, which is sort of the term I use for sort of your Hayes, Reed, Michael Page's S3s, they specialise in taking average people and getting above average performance.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that's what you've got to do when you're a big company. And I'm not belittling it. I love every minute of my 16 years. But I was really lucky for the manager. I ran a temp desk, and she'd go, here's your KPIs, but let's look at your business. And so we'd measure my temp business by average hours, average margin, average pay rate, average bill rate, length of assignment. And so we would play games. When I got to about 15, 20 temps, we'd play games, which is how much more money would you make if every candidate worked one more hour, Alex?
Yeah, yeah.
How much money would you make if the average assignment length went up by 3 days?
Yeah.
How much more money would you make if you added £1 to your pay rate? You know, and it was all about looking for the different levers that you could pull to help your business get better. And so I think when I was on about 20 temps, my average hours per week were 27.
Yeah.
And it was like, Alex, don't make any more placements. Just get the placements you've got to work harder.
Yeah.
Okay. And I grew 15% just by calling every candidate that worked under 20 hours every week to go, you were hired to do full time, do full time.
Yeah.
You know, and so, but I was involved in those KPIs. So in the end, I'm creating my own KPIs, and I think that's where big firms and small firms fail. I think the third point is that I meet a lot of managers like yourself that work for big businesses and sort of were burned by the KPIs, and they leave, and I go and see them. They've got sort of 8 or 9 people, and they go, I don't do KPIs. We treat everyone like grown-ups here. Yeah. I hate KPIs. I was managed by KPIs. I hated it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I go back and see them 3-6 months later, and I go, how's it going? And they go, just can't get these new kids productive. No one's making enough money. No one's making enough money. And I go, oh, really? Do you want to know why? And then they go, I think I'm going to need some KPIs. And I go, why is that? And they go, they need to learn how to do the job. Duh! KPIs are there to help people learn what they need to do in order to be successful.
It's a moving beast, effectively, isn't it?
And then it changes and adapts over time. And as I said, people are burned because they're used badly for them, and then they ignore them at all. Where I think what the best businesses I see sort of have a cross, which is, if you imagine this cross is level of direction and this cross is performance for the camera. And what that means is as performance improves, the level of direction goes down. And so what I encourage businesses to do is sort of have, here's all your KPIs when you're new and you don't know what you're doing. And when you get to this stage, I don't talk about this KPI anymore. But I still talk about these. And when you get to this stage, I don't talk about that and that. And they can see how they get spoken to about different things.
I think it comes down, and we talk about this a lot in the office. For me, it comes down to looking at the numbers and seeing what the data, the story tells you. So, and that happens whether it's a junior level. You have to work out what that is. You have to hit a certain level of rhythm to fight, to get that experience, to get those battle wounds, to let you know how to do things the right way. But when people are moving up, you can be the most experienced recruiter in the world, but the data will be able to tell you a story, and someone working with you to tell you what that story is invaluable. And that's why you look at quality. So is it a quality issue? Are you doing your numbers, but you're not simply getting enough out of it? Is it a quantity issue? You're simply not doing enough to get there? Is it a direction issue? Are you doing the right sort of quality and quantity, but in the wrong sort of area? Or is it a mentality issue? Are you just trying to shortcut the surface? Are you reaching so far for the goal that you're forgetting the process that goes on beneath it? And I honestly believe that anyone's issues at any stage, be them a 15-year recruiter, a 5-year recruiter, or a 5-day recruiter, will come down to quality, quantity, direction, or mentality in terms of where they're looking at it.
And when you first start, I think one of the challenges people have with activities, when they first start, it is all about volume. And I think volume isn't a bad thing. Managers just don't sell it. You know, and doing a lot is about learning your craft. You know, if you start any sport, you're going to have to do a lot of it to get good. And so there's this sort of feeling that, oh, the phone's really bad. I was made to smash the phones. Well, how are you going to get good at it? Whilst social media is really powerful as a business development tool, email is really important, the phone is still one of the most sort of powerful weapons that recruiters have.
It's a relationship game. It's a contact sport, as we call it.
I mean, the way I always put it is that a social media tweet, you've got about 15 words.
Yeah.
Okay. On an email, you've got about 60 words. On a phone call, 5 minutes, you're going to have 900 words.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Normal conversation, 180 words a minute if you're the BBC.
Yeah.
So why? I mean, what client sends you a 900-word email?
Yeah.
They just don't.
Yeah.
You know, so you're going to get more knowledge by being on the phone. That's why a 50-minute face-to-face meeting with a client or an hour's face-to-face meeting with a client is going to get you 18,000. Like, it all stacks up. So I think, but managers just need to make the case for this is why you're doing lots of it. Yeah. And they just don't sell. A lot of managers are just rubbish salespeople. Yeah. They don't sell people on doing the job. Yeah. They just say, here's your job, do it. Yeah. You know, or get fired. Or actually, it's about helping people understand why they're doing what they're doing, rather than just necessarily what they're trying to do. Yeah. And it's a game, you know. And then just challenge them. If you think you can do better doing less, then that's fine. If you can pick up the phone 5 times and pick up 5 jobs, then we'll adapt that KPI.
It's even those best people, you know, your best consultants. How can you get more out of them? And that's what I think everyone should always be looking to do. If you're at the very top of your game, how are you going to take it to the next level? Because there are people coming who want to take that from you. And I think you've always got to evolve with it as well. There's a really interesting thing you talk about as well. Sorry to sort of move on slightly from it, but there's a you talk about people making the right decisions. How do people make the right decisions on what to work? Because you talk there about nurturing the job and then being beaten and such like. You talk about the importance of business development, which I am a avid believer in. I think you talked about the #1 skill of a sales manager, the #1 skill of a recruitment consultant. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts there.
I mean, I think that we're in the no-win, no-fee business. Yeah. And when I started, no-win, no-fee made sense because the clients had an option of using a rubbish PSL or advertising in the local paper. Yeah. Okay, so no-win, no-fee worked. I think how you prioritise your vacancies has never been more important for recruiters. Because often you're working on opportunities that are being actively worked by the internal recruitment team, actively worked by a competitor, and you may even be working in a geographical area that's outside your sweet spot. Yeah. Because back in '98, non-geographical specific recruitment was quite difficult, where now you can work anywhere in the world. Yeah. But I just see way too many recruiters working on things that they don't even believe they're going to get paid on. But they're so excited about having a job to work. Yeah. They'll just sit there and go, well, it's not going to come off, but I feel good about it. I'm in recruitment. Yeah, yeah. And so a lot of recruiters mistake being in recruitment for sending CVs, where I thought being in recruitment was making placements and sending fees, sending invoices. Yeah, yeah. And so I think everyone's got their own criteria for how they prioritise vacancies. In Nurtureit, I had about 6 sliders when we started Nurtureit and all my different ways of prioritising vacancy, but we sort of boiled it down to 2 really. Yeah. The first one is like, what level of client commitment am I getting? Yeah. Are they actively using an internal recruitment team? Are they using other agencies? Will they meet me? Do they return my calls? What's the urgency to actually recruit this role? Yeah. My manager always said is that if there's no one doing that job today and there's work not getting done, those are the ones you want to put your time in. Yeah, yeah. You know, and it's that
need, isn't it? The whole
concept
of need. Yeah.
There's paper piling up, and they need someone to do it. Yeah. But a lot of recruiters just don't ask those questions. They sort of go, what type of role is it? It's a brand new role. Who's covering the workload? Oh, no one really at the moment because the role doesn't exist. Yeah. So how quickly does the client need to recruit? Oh, tomorrow, right. So can they interview today? Oh, no, they can't interview for 6 to 8 weeks. And you're like, and it just gets worse. Yeah. And they're killing themselves. They're not even killing themselves. They're killing their career. Yeah. Working on things that aren't going to convert into cash. Yeah. And the best recruiters I know are the ones that go, Mr. Client, I can't help you with that because of A, B, and C. And they'll push back on the client. Yeah. And it's okay to say no. Yeah. As long as you articulate why. I mean, if you think about, if we were, one of the analogies I sometimes use is that on the flip side of that is they're working these dead-end jobs for no money. Yeah. Like 12%. Like if I was working with an insurance recruiter and they were like, I was like, right, okay, so if I was an insurance broker and I was looking to underwrite someone and there was a higher level of risk, what would they do? Well, they'd increase the premium. Right. So what you're telling me is all your clients work in an environment where the bigger the risk, the more they charge. Yeah. Right. Okay. But you don't apply that to them. Yeah. You know, and part of it is that like insurers are like no claim they win, claim they lose. So what they do is they charge. And it's just about prioritising that. So firstly, client commitment. How much client commitment am I getting? And secondly, what's the sourcing effort involved? Yeah. You know, if I've got to drop everything I'm doing for 4 days, I'm going to want high levels of client commitment. Or I'm going to want to know that that candidate I generate, I'm going to be able to place in all my other candidates.
Yes.
One of the great things about working a really tight market when I started is that I generated a purchase ledger clerk that was immediately available in Stroud or Gloucester. I could probably, I've got 7 or 8 other places that could place them.
Yeah.
But if I'm 1 minute picking a Latvian-speaking auditor in Aberystwyth,
yeah.
you know, and the next I'm working Gaelic-speaking oil rig worker in Aberdeen, and I've got no other clients up there, I'm doing search and selection recruitment for low-level contingent money.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense. Yeah. Most recruiters need to make 2 deals a month to make placements, to make any money. Yeah. So that's 24 deals a year. So, and you've got to be really good to make 24 placements a year. Yeah. So every minute you spend working with someone that's never going to pay you is going to impact your ability to do that.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's just about absolutely respecting your time. There isn't an awful lot of it as a recruiter, and it's, you know, massively overestimated. And I love that whole phraseology around the task expands to fit the time you give it, because people give themselves so much time to do these things without being urgent all the time about how much more they could get into a day. And it's that sort of mentality that I see of the very, very best people, and it is just the very, very best people, of investing their time in the right areas, because one of my old directors said to me, and it's probably the phrase that stuck above anything else, was recruitment is 95% proper qualification of job and candidate, and I live by that, and it's something which I bang on about all the time in the office, and I think if people take that mentality into it, they become this lucky recruiter.
And it doesn't mean to say you can't take a flyer. You know, a bit like in life, we can all have a donut. Yeah, yeah. But if we have too many donuts, we all know what happens. Yeah, you know, and so I was lucky. I worked grew up in probably the best branch over the last 20 years in Robert Half, and so we were really diligent on that. And so every morning we'd sit down and go through our jobs, and probably I was about 6 months in, and the manager, we had about 15 or 20 temp jobs in, and the manager went, they're dead to us. Let's go and find some more. Yeah. You know, and it's that belief that you can go and find more better jobs. Yeah. And I'd sometimes have a job, and my manager would go, Alex, we're going to let you work that after 6, because I'm not paying you a base salary to work that job. Yeah. Yeah, you know,
I mean, that's the point, isn't it? It's about where you invest your time and what amount of time you put into the right sort of things, because, you know, people can take this the other way and then just only try and work absolute sure things in terms of where they go, but that CV flies in from an agency and it's the only other one you see, and you're still screwed from it. Yeah. So it's what time do you invest as to what are the you know, where are the real kingmakers, where are the ones you've got a great chance of placing, where are those other ones, and what sort of time do you invest into the right sort of areas? And as you say, you know, one of the most powerful things that you can hear as a client, I think, is that you're not going to get what you want off the back of this. And too many recruiters are too master-servant or servant-master in terms of how they deliver that sort of feedback to the clients. One of our best clients will actually ask me to go and speak to a whole bunch of his colleagues in the asset management world to tell them that they weren't doing it right, which was a fairly you know, that was walking on daggers to give that to give that sort of feedback. But he worked with us because of that, because he'd worked for 6 months to try and find a vacancy that Lewis and our team delivered very quickly to him, because he was able to say, the way you're hiring, the arrogance you're showing in the interview process isn't going to get you who you want. So you push back and make it a placeable.
And that's why we're all called consultants, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think a lot of it, but I think the key to this is about the sales manager, the recruitment manager, and often it's not just about telling recruiters they can't work jobs, but educating them why. Yeah. And so actually they start to self-manage, is that I'm going to only put this much in because of that. So did I work jobs when I didn't have much client commitment? Well, if I knew I had 4 or 5 other people locally, so I'd use that job as the marketing bait to attract candidates that I knew other people would pay for. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not that you don't work long shots, it's just, but managers just need to be super diligent, and they need to make the case to a recruiter. And I remember the hardest thing for me was, like, you be the new kid, Toby, and do you remember when you picked up that first job? Okay, what did you recruit for when you first started in recruitment?
It was NT4 in Surrey.
NT4, and so you pick up your first job at NT4, and you go, Alex, I've got my first NT job. And what technical discipline did you recruit for?
It was that Windows NT4 support guys,
yeah. I've got NT4. It's based in Bournemouth. Yeah. They need 8 years experience and they're paying 24 grand. Yeah. And I know as a manager, that's a car crash of a... Oh, and it's with 3 agencies. Yeah. And I've got to go, congratulations, Toby. Yeah. But I'm not going to allow you to work it. Yeah, okay, and I'm ripping your heart out. I'm stamping on your dreams. And And it's about educating you. Let me tell you why I'm only going to allow you to spend an hour on that.
Yeah.
You know, and educating individuals to sort of say, you're only going to make 24 placements a year.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll allow you to spend 3 hours trying to find someone. Yeah. You can stay as late as you want, by the way. I'm happy if you stay here all night for it. Yeah. But I'm going to let you spend 3 hours of your time that we pay for every day to do that. And let me explain why. You know, and value that time. And I think, again, it comes back to business development. If you don't do enough business development, if you're not tracking enough leads, if you're not in touch with enough people on an ongoing basis, whether it be through email or social media, or, like, you don't have the confidence that other jobs are coming along, which means you hang on to those bad jobs. Yeah. You know, it's sort of like, if you know there's more jobs coming in, you're just like, yeah. You can make those choices because you've got to invest the time to do that. You can be really picky, and that's the biggest thing is.
And you can have options for your candidates. Is the other side of it. People sort of sit there and they say, right, I'm too busy. I've got too many jobs because they're not working that niche that you talk about, Swindon and Gloucester or Surrey's NT4 world or whatever it is. And they can't, reutilise the candidates and say, right, okay, I've got this one candidate and I've got them to 3-4 different places, and I can almost guarantee that I'm going to be placing that particular candidate rather than just filling the job. Yeah,
so I mean, Swindon, Cheltenham, Gloucester, the skill set I always liked marketing most was internal auditors. Yeah. Newly qualified chartered accountants, 2 years experience into internal audits, had loads of financial services.
I can see the look in your eyes.
Yeah, sparkling, like you think, really? Like, do people make money doing this? But it was sort of the bottle of champagne, as it were, that opened the door that showed credibility. And most of the time, I never placed an internal auditor at any of those companies. But what I was able to go is, look, I know you find this difficult. That's how good I am. And then I got the management accounting jobs that I could fill easily. So you've got to use candidates in a way to just basically showcase what you do and to give you an opportunity to talk about something other than whether they're recruiting right now.
Yeah, I agree.
And so when you're prioritising your jobs, it's really just about thinking, how likely am I to get paid for this? You know, and especially if it's through a portal, if you're not getting to speak to the line manager, you've got an internal recruiter that doesn't really like you, because you can meet really good internal recruiters that you can partner with. But if the things aren't there that give you the chance, there's no communication, there's no respect, there's no extra information outside the job spec. You know, if there's an unexpected, sort of unrealistic expectations in terms of skill set or salary, well, like, you're not going to make any money. You might, but you might also die of starvation. You know, and I don't blame the recruiters. If you've got under a year's worth of experience, I don't blame the recruiters that do that. I blame the managers. And the thing is, managers don't get fired for being really bad at developing new consultants. They'll blame the new consultants for not picking up the phone enough.
Pass it over.
But what often happens, Toby, is that I'll sit there and I'm an experienced biller. I've got 2 or 3 people in my team, and I've got the best clients. I'm working it, and a job comes in for NT4 in Newbury, and you're like, that's a shit job. I tell you what, for Vodafone, I'll give that to Toby. He can cut his teeth. And what I do is I give a job to Toby that I wouldn't even work. And I'm really surprised when he doesn't fill it. Like, so you could, and I think what often managers forget is they think, well, I'm giving Toby a chance to learn recruitment. He's teaching Toby how to fail in recruitment. That's what he's doing. And actually, what we forget is the fact that when someone new starts in recruitment, they start with a belief level. I'm going to make it. Their mum's telling them they're going to make it. Their dad, their uncle, their aunt, you're going to make it, Toby. You're going to be brilliant. We love you. You're going to do it. And then every day they don't do a deal, that light goes out. And when you tell them they can't work the first job they picked up, that dips a little bit more. You know, and after 3 months, if they haven't made a placement, like, you can just see, I go into places, and I often go in every 3 months, and you can just see the lights are going out. You know, and what you've got to do is, if someone doesn't make a placement in the first 3 months, that belief's pretty much gone. The goal of the manager is to give someone an opportunity where they can see the cycle within their first 4 weeks. And I did some research, and basically, it was like, the correlation between making a deal in your first 4 weeks and making it past probation was just, the correlation was just, it was significant. And so what I learned...
So early wins.
And so what I used to do is I used to give everyone a shoe-in job. You know, and whilst everyone will go, no one ever helped me, I was just given a phone book. Back in the day, we were all helped out. Someone gave us a shoe-in, and you'd give someone, here's a purchase ledger, here's a payroll job, here's a search that you can call. Day one, they're speaking to candidates that can do the job. You know, and they're like, oh my God. And they're sending CVs day 2, they're arranging interviews day 3, 4, 5, 6. You know, and then after 2-3 weeks, they've made a placement. And they're like, Mom, I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it. And that's That's what we're trying to. That's what we're going to try and do. But we don't do that, which means the industry turns over 50% of people in its first year, which is just tremendously costly, not only from a financial perspective, but just from a reputation perspective.
Is that the
It works out about that. Yeah, I mean, I know from a lot of it depends on the attitude towards making people work. A lot of it depends on how long they get to spend being a resourcer and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But if you go to a 360, like feed yourself desk, you're probably looking at 50-60% of people don't make it after a year, and that's because no one helps them. They're just encouraged to do. Or what they'll do is they'll allow Alex to sit in Bristol with all the established clients, and then they'll give Johnny the new kid, like they did to me, Swindon, Cheltenham, Gloucester. This is where we want to go. We'll give the new kid Swindon, Cheltenham, Gloucester, and they'll burn through 10 people trying to develop a new market, while the person that's best at business development gets to work all the easy jobs. But that's for another. That's for another show. So.
Great stuff. Well, listen, it's been wonderful talking to you. I could speak all day about this sort of stuff, but we have to put it to a close. And I always ask for one last thing at the end of these interviews, which is if you could look down the camera and say to someone, look, this is my one bit of advice for someone coming into recruitment, one bit which people could take away, what would that be?
The thing that I'd encourage you to do is think about relationships. It's all about not only knowing what people want, but it's about knowing why they want them. And it's about being in touch with them, not just day 1, day 2, month 3, month 4, but over years. And if you work in a tight market, in a tight niche, what you'll find is your candidates will become clients, your clients will become candidates. In 2-3 years' time, you become that lucky recruiter that's billing 350 grand.
It's perfect. Listen, it's been wonderful talking to you. If the people at home want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
So you can find me on LinkedIn like every other recruiter. You can find me on Twitter at Alex_Moyle. You can find me on Nurtureit.io, which is our free pipeline productivity tool for recruiters. So if you want to organise your leads and your placements more effectively, check that out. And you can also check me out on alexmoyle.co.uk.
Perfect. Well, listen, thank you so much for coming in. Thanks for talking to us, and we will see you all soon on another episode of Recruiter 360 TV. Alex, thanks very much.
Thanks a lot, Toby.
Cheers.
Cheers.